Jesse completed 8 days of dry fasting. Almost unbelievable. And I just want to say, wow, I mean, that's just incredible.
What does that mean?
It means what you suspect it might mean. It means no food and no water.
Really?
Yep. So the kinds of things we can discuss in the advanced student group is that there's wet fasting, which is well known, and there's dry fasting, which is less well known. But of course, the pioneer, the modern pioneer, is a Russian medical doctor. Shocker, from Siberia. Shocker. And so they're basically, this probably was how people fasted traditionally, like in biblical times, like Jesus in the desert kind of a thing. Like, to withhold from food and water is to really connect to prana, to connect to source as a source of energy for the body, and to connect to spirituality as it really lets you touch into a deep essence of spirituality. And oh, by the way, your control pause just like goes through the roof, and you really are able to experience very elevated states. And it creates a very profound, like, both a physiological process that's unique, but also like a spiritual process, because in a wet fast you are flushing out toxins, and that's usually what you're doing most of the time. But in a dry fast, in the absence of water, you're actually, the cells have a special thermonuclear reaction where they will actually burn up toxins. So you are actually turning your cells into little incinerators, and you are burning off that which is toxic or foreign or doesn't belong there anymore. And of course, that's what's happening at a spiritual level too. You're actually burning off that which is untrue, that which is not true to the essence of life and of who you are. So it's crazy powerful. And I went 8 days because I you know, I'm not just saying that. I would have gone for longer, but I was actually teaching and adjusting people and participating in my life. So that actually let me know that I was really going for 14 days. That was kind of what I had set my psychology aligned to. And so a full-on dry fast is 9 to 14 days. They say you're supposed to die after 3 to 4 days without water. But of course, this also illuminates something about upper levels of Buteyko, which are, I think, two things. One is that we have this massive reserve capacity. So I think the upper level control pauses are really a lot about reserve capacity on a biological level. And then on a spiritual level, we have an ability to connect with prana as a source of nourishment, prana that powers our body, prana that powers our mind. And so it really allows you to get into a very elevated state in terms of one's relationship to pure life force energy.
Yeah, I don't even think I've ever heard of that. I mean, I've obviously heard of detoxes and, you know, fasting and whatnot, but not to that level. I mean, what, like, was there a peak? Like, when you first started, did you feel like you just went down, or was it like a plateau, or was it like an incline? Like, what did that look like when, like, from the process from starting, you know, the process of walking away from food and water?
Well, I was already down to 1 meal a day intermittent fasting. So from there, I just read about dry fasting. Sasha had done an initial consult with someone named Colby, who's a new student of ours, and he was talking about dry fasting, and I hadn't really heard of it. So after I heard the initial consult, I learned all about it. And as is my way, I'm like, that sounds really amazing, really out there. That's kind of how I am. So I was like, I'm going to do this, because I'd experimented with fasting and intense intermittent fasting. So I was like, you know, really, you know, I'm here to explore the outer edges of physiology and consciousness, and then bring back the wisdom of that. That's like part of my incarnation, is to bring the wisdom of these kind of outer edges of experience into the collective, so that it become part of our potential and part of the known reality of the collective. So I was like, I'm going to dry fast. This sounds amazing. So I just started, and I would say that by day 3, every organ in my body just took a big sigh. Not only the whole digestive system, but also the whole system that processes water. and everything just came to total still point and rest. And by that time, my control pause was probably 2 minutes or something. And so then I was sleeping like 2 hours a day, and I would just get up. I'd sleep 2 hours, and I was like, I can't even sleep. I like can't even lay in bed anymore. It's like ridiculous. So 2 hours later, I'd go outside and I'd sit in a chair at like midnight or 12:30 or something, and I just like sit and meditate and just like commune with life force. And I just sit here. We have a beautiful property, and I just like commune with life and be awake at these early hours of the morning. And then sometimes I go to the beach at 4, and I'd like watch the first light of dusk, you know, and just like really commune with life and with life force. And so by day 3, it was clear to me that my body was able to take on, to be nourished by life force energy, because I had like tremendous energy, right? By day 3, I had tremendous energy, and I was like, where does this energy come from? And I think there's something really interesting about in 3 to 4 days, you're die of no water. Because you know what happens at 3 to 4 days? You start coming alive. You start like losing the veils of illusion. So you do die a certain like spiritual death because you're coming alive in a really profound way. So our medical textbook, you're gonna die. Well, yeah, you're gonna like, that which is untrue is gonna die away. And if that's your belief system, and you have a lot of fear around that, you could certainly put yourself into a state where that may be true. But knowing, in fact, that we have tremendous water reserves, at least up until 10, 12, 14 days, one's not under threat. And so I was like, if I'm really suffering, my breathing and every physiological function will get really wonky. But no, it was just like so elevated. And so from day 3 to 6, I was just like walking on clouds. By day 6, I was like, dang, I'm thirsty. I'm so thirsty. But, you know, there's these beautiful descriptions like, all right, on day 6, the thirst is going to get intense. And then day 7, it's going to get more intense. And then by day 8, there's like these really great descriptions, which are very grounding to me as far as what would happen on each day, not only in terms of the physiological process, but also in terms of the, what you'll experience. So that was really grounding to have that like stepping stones instead of like walking slowly into insanity or something. I was just like, okay, today's this is happening. Today's this. So, but yeah, by that time, my body was absorbing water atmospherically. So through the air, so I was peeing every day, oddly enough. And then once I started to, by day 6, I actually started like kind of needing to shower a lot, or needing to be near or in a lake or near a lake. Like I was needing atmospheric water, and I was clearly absorbing it because I started peeing more, even though I was not ingesting any water. So now I was taking in water through my skin, and that was pretty cool. So I guess when I say like, we have these kind of hunter-gatherer reserves. So when there's no food and no water, like suddenly it's like, boom, let's all get together. And you have massive focus and massive energy, like get food, get water, and you have huge reserves to do so. And at the same time, your body is taking on this like incredibly profound process of cleansing to the deepest level of the cellular life. And it's just like burning off anything that's untrue. And also when you create drought conditions in the body, only the very strongest cells of your body can survive. That's another thing, is when we get to the higher states of CP, it's a different psychology. It's actually the psychology of cultivating the strength and hardiness of the organism and challenging that part of the organism so that it will get stronger and stronger and stronger. So in a dry fast, you create these conditions where not only do all pathogenic organisms which live in a water medium start to perish because they're losing their medium, but only the strongest cells in your body can tolerate that. So what happens is your body has these programs of autophagy and apoptosis, which get activated during fasting. And they basically start to self-eat and program cell death for weak cells. So the strong cells basically say, I'm taking your water. Like all the weak cells in every organ, all the weak cells in all the tissues start to die off as the strong cells start to get a lot stronger and more robust and start to dominate the cellular metabolic milieu. And so it's like so profound. You basically switch out to the strongest cells become dominant in your body. Your own metabolically produced water, this like inner spring of life. We have like water comes out of the earth from a thermonuclear reaction from out of nowhere, springs water out of the earth. The same thing happens in our cells. We have this inner spring, this like perfect metabolic water, this life spring comes out of our cells, but only if you push yourself into the space of these massive reserves that we have at our capacity that are available to us. So that is what brought me to think that up until the level of 60, it's about dormant blockages and the layers that are between us and health. And above 60, it's about dormant capacities and awakening these dormant capacities of our life force and of our biology and of our mind and of our spirituality. So I'm so into like, what are these dormant capacities that are just waiting for the invitation? The dry fast is a permission slip to enliven dormant capacities of the physiology, of the mind, and of the spirit, and of connecting to prana in this like absolutely fascinating, extraordinary way. And it's part of our design. So that's where like, oh, like our design is those higher control pods. They're part of our design, and they're latent and they're dormant, and we get to activate them through these cool ways. And in this 1 year program, we're going to figure out how to activate these dormant capacities. And thank you for letting me go on and on about this.